Madison, it's simple. Aubrey should live here, too, because we are family, and it's only natural that we share everything. My mother's voice scraped sharply against my eardrums. Behind her, my father stood with his arms crossed, nodding deeply. At their feet was a pile of cardboard boxes my sister Aubrey had brought in. On the sides were her handwritten labels: winter clothes, cosmetics, diary, do not read. Just a few hours earlier, this place had only just become my home. That afternoon, on my 21st birthday, I had been sitting on the living room sofa with my grandmother Vivian, just the two of us. On the glass coffee table in front of us sat a thick leather folder. "Go on, open it, Madison," my grandmother urged. I opened the folder with trembling fingers. Inside, along with papers covered in complex diagrams and numbers, was a single sheet of parchment that carried an overwhelming weight. The deed to the house and a copy of the official registration papers listing my name as the rightful owner. "From today on, this is your home," my grandmother said, her eyes narrowing gently as she spoke. "The $5 million value is nothing more than a number. What truly matters is that this place is a sanctuary where you can build your future without anyone interfering. You must not allow anyone, even family, to violate that." I traced the ink letters on the documents without saying a word. The legal weight carried by my own name was unlike anything I had ever felt before. In that moment, I officially became the sole master of this glass fortress perched on the cliffs of Malibu. Filled with my grandmother's deep love and trust, my chest tightened with emotion. But only a few hours later, that sacred silence was shattered by violent pounding on the front door and my mother's shrill voice. "Madison, I know you're in there. Open up." Standing before me were my parents and my sister, who had forced their way inside. Behind them were Aubrey's cardboard boxes. As I stood there stunned, my mother crossed her arms and spoke, as if making a proclamation. "Madison, I've heard everything. Your grandmother contacted me. She said she gave you this house today." She paused, a triumphant smile spreading across her face. "So I've decided. Aubrey will be living here too." "Wait, Mom. That doesn't make any sense." I managed to squeeze out the words. "This has become my home. Grandma gave it to me alone." As proof, the leather folder containing the deed and registration papers, engraved with my name, sat quietly on the dining table. My father cut in as though he was giving me guidance, yet allowed no room for refusal. "Madison, don't say such unreasonable things. You're still a student. There's no way you can manage a house this big on your own. And Aubrey is about to graduate from high school. It's best for sisters to help each other and live together." Help each other. The words echoed hollowly in my head because I knew better than anyone that their idea of helping each other had always been built upon my sacrifice. They didn't understand for even a moment that this was my home. No, they understood it perfectly well, and they had come here intentionally to trample on that fact. To them, this $5 million mansion was not my future, but merely a new asset the family should make use of. Aubrey spoke without lifting her gaze from her smartphone, sounding bored. "That's right. I'll take the corner room with the ocean view. It'll look great on Instagram." Her words poured oil on the small ember of anger smoldering within me, and that comment snapped the thread of my self-control. "You must be joking, Aubrey." My voice was lower and sharper than I expected. "This is not a hotel. This is my home. There aren't rooms prepared for the sake of your Instagram likes." Aubrey finally looked up, her eyes widening as if I had spoken in an alien language. "What? You're so mean." I let out a dry laugh. "This is a matter of ownership. You have no right to touch even a single key to any room in this house." My clear rejection changed the atmosphere in the room, which had been calm just moments earlier. My mother placed a glass, one she had taken from the kitchen without permission, onto the marble counter with a sharp clink. The pleasant smile that had been on her face vanished, replaced by a cold glint in her eyes. "Madison, what did you just say? What is that tone? You're being far too unkind to your sister." I stared straight back at my mother. "Did you not hear me? I said Aubrey cannot live here because this is my home. You mentioned kindness." "Mom, what exactly are you trying to do here today on my birthday in this house?" The next moment, my mother's hand swung up and a dry sting spread across my cheek. It was an act so stereotypical and so humiliating. But what I felt more strongly than pain was not surprise. It was a cold certainty. Yes, this was her true nature. Her way of forcing down anyone who wouldn't obey using sheer power. "You ungrateful girl," my mother cursed me with a trembling voice. "Who do you think allowed you to go to college? We are your parents. How dare you defy your parents?" Her words pried open the lid of a bitter memory I had buried deep inside my heart. It was on a summer day after I graduated high school. With my acceptance letter from my dream university in hand, I checked the balance of my bank account, which held the money I had saved for years through part-time jobs along with the financial help from my parents to pay my tuition. But the number displayed made me doubt my own eyes. Most of the money that should have been there had disappeared. When I panicked, my mother said without a trace of remorse, "Oh, that money. I used it for Aubrey's trip to Europe." She said the photos she posts on social media have to be real, not fake. My father nodded beside her and said, "That's how it is, Madison. You can manage with scholarships or something. We're family, so it's natural to help each other." My future had been taken away effortlessly for the sake of my sister's Instagram-worthy experiences. In despair, I called my grandmother, not to ask for tuition, but to tell her that I was thinking of giving up on college altogether. However, she did not overlook the trembling in my voice as I tried desperately to sound cheerful over the phone. Without pressing for details, she simply commanded, "Madison, come here at once." When I arrived at her house, she looked straight into my eyes and asked only one thing: what happened? At that moment, the tension snapped and I burst into tears like a child and confessed everything. After listening silently to the end, my grandmother looked at me with quiet anger in her eyes and said, "Amelia has always been that way. She justifies her selfish actions with the words for the family." "Madison, listen carefully. You must never let anyone steal your future. Do not worry about your tuition. I will pay for it." And then she added this: "However, remember this. True strength is not merely accepting help. It is being able to confront injustice and assert your own rights with your own voice." Those words had supported me up to this day. And now the time had come for me to assert them on my supposed mother standing before me. I would not remain silent any longer. "You're asking who allowed me to go to college? Of course, it's thanks to Grandma," I said clearly, ignoring the pain in my cheek and staring straight into my mother's eyes. "The reason I can go to college now is because Grandma paid my tuition after you used my tuition money for Aubrey." The truth seemed to slice through my mother's pride more sharply than anything else. The color drained from her face, and the next moment it turned bright red with rage. Her eyes opened wide with hatred, as if she had become a different person. "What did you just say? We are the ones who raised you to this point." She had lost her reason and was shouting purely out of emotion. "That's enough. I've had enough." She pointed toward the living room's front door and spat out her final decisive command. "Pack your things and get out. This house belongs to us. It belongs to the family." My father immediately joined in as if he had been waiting for that very moment. "That's right, Madison. Your mother is correct. Anyone who defies the family has no place here." I was stunned. This was my home. The deed and the registry both legally proved that everything belonged to me. Yet they were trying to strip it all away from me using nothing but the vague, violent logic of family. Aubrey watched the whole scene through her smartphone screen, laughing. But then it happened. Oh my, that's something I cannot ignore. From the entrance of the room where their angry voices echoed, a calm yet steel-like voice could be heard. The voice belonged to Grandma. Yes, she had not left. From the moment she gifted me the house earlier that day until that very moment, she had been present the entire time in another room, quietly observing how everything would unfold. And in that desperate situation, she was smiling softly, almost amused, as if watching an entertaining play. She slowly stepped into the room. My mother froze as if her earlier outburst had been a lie. My father shifted his gaze awkwardly, unable to meet anyone's eyes. "Mother, when did you?" My mother asked in a faint, cracking voice. "Since when?" "The whole time," Grandma answered. I saw the moment you struck your own daughter's cheek. And I heard you declare that this house belongs to the family. I know everything. She walked toward me and gently touched my cheek with her cool fingertips. Madison, is your cheek all right? Does it hurt? I'm fine, Grandma, I replied firmly, though my voice trembled slightly. Yet her presence strengthened my heart more than anything. And in her eyes I saw not anger, but a quiet, merciless light. My father hurried to speak, trying desperately to salvage the situation. This is, well, just a family matter. Madison simply became a little emotional, that's all. We only wanted the sisters to live together peacefully. A family matter. Grandma let out a small snort as if she found his words genuinely ridiculous. Jonathan, forcing your way into a house without permission, threatening someone, and committing violence. Is that what you call family? As far as I know, society calls those things trespassing, intimidation, and assault. As soon as those legal terms left her lips, the color drained instantly from my father's face. Grandma Vivian was not just a gentle grandmother. She was also a brilliant entrepreneur who had built her own business from the ground up. Her knowledge of the law and negotiation skills far surpassed anyone else in the room. My mother, desperate to regain the control she had lost, tried to argue back. Mother, what are you saying? We were only thinking about Madison. For my sake? This time I cut her off. Bringing Aubrey's belongings into my house without permission on my birthday, and then slapping me across the face. You call that for my sake? If you truly believe that, Mom, then you're mentally unwell. What did you just say? The tension in the room grew tight like a stretched string ready to snap at any moment. Everyone held their breath, waiting for the next words. And within that suffocating silence, a faint, almost inaudible laugh slipped out. The one laughing was Grandma. She slowly walked to the dining table and gently brushed her hand over the leather folder lying there. This house belongs solely to Madison under the law. There isn't even a millimeter of space for your sentimental little family game to intrude. Then Vivian turned, fixing her gaze on the 3 frozen figures, and made her declaration. Everything you've done was exactly as I predicted, which is why I prepared all this. Overwhelmed by my grandmother's authority, my mother opened her mouth as if to argue, but only a wordless groan slipped out before she took a step back. My father, with beads of cold sweat forming on his forehead, stood frozen in place. Prepare? What are you talking about? Grandma paid no attention to their confusion and sat deeply and gracefully onto the living room sofa. Amelia, you've always had the habit of interpreting things however it suits you. When you used Madison's college fund for Aubrey's little sightseeing trip, you did the same. You sincerely believed it was appropriate maternal affection. That indulging your younger daughter to an abnormal degree was somehow justified. I gasped at her words. That was me thinking about my children's future, my mother said. Silence. The warmth vanished from my grandmother's voice. That warped affection is exactly what has cornered you today. She pulled a small remote-like device from the pocket of her gown and pointed it at the beautiful landscape painting hanging on the living room wall. Everything you said after entering this house and the violence earlier, all of it was recorded by this hidden camera. Hidden camera? My mother whispered in a hoarse voice, looking back and forth between the painting and my grandmother. My father swallowed hard with a dry sound, and Aubrey stood pale and motionless. Yes, Grandma continued calmly. And of course, that is not all. I have already formally consulted my lawyer. I contacted him moments ago. According to him, your actions today could very likely be considered clear intimidation against Madison's property. This footage will serve as undeniable evidence. The word lawyer pierced them with the weight of a real threat. Their naive belief that this could be brushed aside as mere family trouble crumbled instantly before the enormous wall of the law. Grandma paused once, then spoke quietly. And earlier, when you shouted that Madison should pack her things and leave this house, at that very moment, following my lawyer's instructions, I contacted the police as well. The room fell into silence. Only the gentle sound of waves from outside the window echoed through the still air. No, that's not true, my mother denied with a frail voice. That can't be. Mother, you wouldn't call the police on your own daughter. It is not a lie. Grandma denied her words without a trace of sentiment. Before you are my daughter, you are an individual who has crossed a line that must never be crossed. You hurt Madison's dignity and tried to take away her future. I will never allow that, even if the offender is my own daughter. Those words pierced deeply into my chest as well. My grandmother had resolved to abandon her own daughter in order to protect me. The depth of that love and the weight of that decision made me bite my lip in silence. Aubrey let out a shriek, high-pitched and close to a scream. The police? Are you serious? No way. Do I have to go too? I don't want to go somewhere like that. Dad, Mom, say something. But neither of her parents could say a single word now. They had finally realized that they had fallen perfectly into the trap they believed they'd set for me. They had been dancing in the palm of the one person they must never turn into an enemy, Grandma Vivian, since the beginning. And then at that moment, in the distance, faintly, the sound of sirens could be heard. It grew little by little, unmistakably louder, approaching the mansion atop the cliff. Red and blue rotating lights began to cast eerie reflections across the glass walls, painting restless patterns of light over the white marble floor of the living room. My mother had completely lost her composure. For a woman of immense pride who always needed the world to revolve around her, having the police involved was perhaps the greatest humiliation of her life. My father was desperately searching for an escape route. His eyes darted rapidly between me, my grandmother, and the front door. Please reconsider. This is really nothing more than a family quarrel. If you turn the police away, we'll leave immediately. I swear we will never show our faces before you again. His transparent pleading earned nothing more than a cold stare from me. Just minutes ago, this man was trying to throw me out of my own home, and now he was begging for mercy. The sight was both absurd and deeply repulsive. And then it happened. Ding dong. A cold mechanical chime echoed through the room. While none of us could move, Grandma quietly stood up. Then, with calm and composed steps, she walked toward the front door. A few seconds of silence passed before the door was opened. In that stillness, I became certain that this long day was finally coming to an end. When she opened the door, 2 police officers were standing there. Good evening. We received a report about a family dispute at this residence. Grandma stepped slightly to the side so they could see the disastrous state of the living room. Yes, thank you for coming. I am Vivian Brooks, the one who made the call, and this is my granddaughter, Madison, the owner of this house. The officers turned their gaze toward me. I quietly nodded. Could you explain what happened here? One of them asked. My father, clinging to a final shred of hope, opened his mouth with a desperate expression. Officer, it's not what you think. This is really just an argument. These people are exaggerating the situation, but the one who cut him off was unexpectedly my sister Aubrey. She crawled toward the officer's feet, lifted her tear-streaked, snot-covered face, and pleaded, "It's them." Dad and Mom said they were going to kick my sister out and take over the house. I was against it the whole time, but they threatened to disown me if I didn't do what they said. Even these boxes, they forced me to bring them. I've always been on my sister's side. Her lie didn't even make me angry anymore. I was simply stunned. She just wanted to save herself. That alone drove her to betray our parents without hesitation. This was the true face of the sister my parents had spoiled and adored to an unhealthy extreme. And at her selfish and grotesque betrayal, my father and mother stood in shock, as if they no longer had the strength to argue. The daughter they had loved most, the one they had indulged beyond reason, had blocked even their last escape route. However, the officer didn't so much as raise an eyebrow at Aubrey's transparent lie. He simply asked my grandmother in a steady voice, "Do you have any evidence that supports or contradicts their claims?" "Yes, I do," Grandma said. She picked up the remote from earlier and pointed toward the landscape painting on the wall. The camera hidden inside that painting has recorded everything. We can review the footage immediately if needed. Every word and action since they arrived here, their intent to trespass, their threats toward the rightful owner, Madison, and the moment of violence as well. All of it. That single statement was the decisive blow. The expressions of the officers turned sharply serious. This was no longer mediation for a family dispute. It was the investigation of clear criminal acts. Then one of the officers turned to me. "Miss Madison, do you wish to file an official complaint and press charges against them?" "Your decision is what matters most." My father and mother stared at me with pleading eyes. I met their gaze directly. I would not waver anymore. This was not a stage my grandmother had prepared. This was the first battle I had to fight in order to begin my own life. I nodded firmly. "Yes, I do." My voice did not shake. "This is my decision to protect my home and my future. Then both of you will need to come with us to the station under suspicion of trespassing and intimidation." "No, this can't be," my mother whispered as she collapsed weakly to the floor. Aubrey, suspected of conspiracy, was also asked to accompany them for questioning. Her voice screaming, "I'm the victim," until the very end echoed unpleasantly in my ears, even after they left. Grandma and I simply watched in silence through the floor-to-ceiling glass wall as they were placed in the backseat of the patrol car, and as the red and blue lights slowly faded into the distance. When the sirens could no longer be heard, only the sound of waves returning against the shore filled the air around the house. I slowly sank into the sofa. All strength left my body and exhaustion washed over me. There was nothing but an empty sense of relief that it was finally over. "Madison," my grandmother quietly sat down beside me. She said nothing as she wrapped my trembling hand with her warm hand. "Grandma, I'm sorry for making you do something so awful." The words I managed to force out were so thin and shaky that they surprised even me. But she gently shook her head. "No, Madison. I am the one who should apologize. I should have intervened much sooner. Back when Amelia touched your college fund." I lifted my face and looked at her. Regret shimmered in her eyes. I wanted to believe that she would one day realize her own wrongdoing. It's natural for a mother to want to believe in her daughter, isn't it? But that was merely my wishful thinking, my escape from reality. "And, because of that, you had to suffer like this today." "No, that's not true." I shook my head. "If you hadn't been here today, I'm sure I wouldn't have been able to protect this house." "No, protect myself." "No, you would have." Grandma looked straight into my eyes and spoke clearly. "What I did today was only to give your back the slightest push. The first person who said no to them was you. And even after being struck, the one who refused to bow down was your own strength." Then she smiled softly. "I wanted to test you, Madison, to see if you had the resolve to shoulder a property as great as this mansion. But in the end, there was no need to test you at all. They themselves proved your worth in their own foolishness, more clearly than anything I could have done." Her words seeped gently and warmly into the deepest part of my heart. Yes, I did not run away. I stood on my own feet and used my own voice to say no. That night, Grandma and I had a small, but truly meaningful birthday celebration at the dining table. We did not speak of legal rights to the house or the fate of the people who once called themselves my family. Instead, we quietly talked about the economics I was studying in college and stories of the mistakes Grandma made when she first started her business in her youth. Several weeks passed. The situation was handled steadily and in accordance with the law. My father and mother were prosecuted for intimidation and residential trespassing and received guilty verdicts with suspended sentences. Because of their criminal record, my father lost his job. And my mother, who valued appearances above all, became isolated from every community. Stripped of everything, my father and mother finally reached one conclusion at the edge of despair: that it was they themselves who had spoiled Aubrey to an abnormal degree and raised her into a twisted monster. The sight of their daughter trying to sell them out at that moment must have been the final deciding factor. They cut off all support for Aubrey and cast her out. As a result, Aubrey, who had never achieved anything through her own efforts, was thrown alone into the rough currents of the real world. I heard rumors that she is now living a harder life than anyone else. But I no longer felt any pain in my heart. It was simply the natural outcome of a distorted system called family collapsing from within under the weight of its own poison. 2 years later, I graduated at the top of my class from the university's economics department and leapt into the world of investment. A few more years passed, and I succeeded in launching my own investment fund under my name and even appeared on the cover of business magazines as a young entrepreneur. Now, Grandma is no longer just my guardian or supporter. She has become my most respected family member and my equal partner, aiming for the same heights with me in the world of business.